I was not prepared for the HOA to accuse me of theft like it was a parking ticket. She was already screaming before I even got my car door open. You stole from multiple vehicles in this community, and I have proof. Joanne Whitaker, Architectural Committee member for the Desert Palms Community Association in Columbus, Ohio, stood 3 feet from my driver's side door with a clipboard in a clear plastic sleeve and a bright orange warning tag flapping in her hand. Her red shoulder-length hair whipped around as she jabbed a finger at my back seat. That sealed package does not belong to you, and I am calling the police right now if you do not surrender it immediately. I looked at the back seat. My medical device accessory, still in its sealed shipping box, sat exactly where I had left it after picking it up from the post office that morning. I work as a cable installer, and my landlord had already warned me that any HOA drama could mess up my lease renewal, so I kept my voice calm. That is mine. I have the receipt. She cut me off. The rules changed yesterday, and you should have known. All packages must be logged with the front office within 24 hours of delivery, and you missed the deadline. I am documenting this as theft from a community vendor. I had never heard that rule in my life. The package was addressed to me, shipped to my address, paid for with my card. Joanne shook her head and slapped the orange tag onto my windshield. This community has standards, and I am the reason this place stays safe. You have 1 hour to submit a written appeal to management, or I am authorizing a tow and filing a police report for theft. She turned and walked toward the mailbox cluster, dragging a rolling file cart behind her like it was a courtroom exhibit. The cart had 3 plastic bins stacked on it, each one stuffed with papers and binders. I stood there with my keys in my hand, trying to process what had just happened. The Desert Palms Community Association was a lakefront neighborhood with strict guest rules and a gate. I had lived here for 8 months, and Joanne had been a low-level annoyance the entire time, always finding some new violation to write up. But this was different. She was accusing me of theft, and she was doing it loud enough that 2 neighbors on their porches had stopped to stare. I pulled out my phone and called my buddy Chris, who lived 4 units down and had dealt with Joanne before. He answered on the second ring. "She just tried to tow you?" "No, but she threatened it. She says I stole a package, and that the rules changed yesterday." Chris laughed, but it was bitter. "She pulled the same thing on me last month. Claimed I was running a side hustle out of my garage because I had too many deliveries. Turned out she was just mad I would not let her use my driveway for her book club overflow parking. Did you fight it?" "I tried." She invented a new appeal step halfway through and said my paperwork was invalid. I ended up paying a $50 fine just to make it stop. I felt my stomach drop. If my landlord caught wind of fines or police involvement, he could use it as an excuse to not renew. I needed to fix this fast. I grabbed the receipt from my glove box, took a photo of the sealed package with my phone, and headed to the management office. The office was a small converted unit near the gate, staffed by a rotating crew of part-timers who mostly just processed maintenance requests. When I walked in, the receptionist looked up with tired eyes. "Can I help you? I need to file an appeal. Joanne Whitaker just accused me of theft and threatened a tow. I have proof this package is mine." I slid the receipt across the counter. The receptionist glanced at it, then looked at her computer screen. She clicked a few times, frowned, and clicked again. "I do not see any new rules about package logging." "When did she say this went into effect?" "Yesterday." The receptionist shook her head. "Nothing was updated yesterday. Let me call the property manager." She dialed, waited, left a voicemail. "The manager is out until tomorrow. You can leave the appeal packet here and I will make sure she gets it." I started filling out the form, writing as clearly as I could. Halfway through, the door opened behind me. Joanne walked in, saw me, and her face went cold. She marched up to the counter and set down a bright cone, the kind you see in construction zones, right next to my elbow like she owned the space. She looked at the receptionist. "Do not accept that packet. He is missing the vehicle registration addendum, which is required as of this morning. I am instructing you to refuse service and send him away." The receptionist blinked. "I do not know what addendum you are talking about." Joanne pulled a laminated sheet from her clipboard and smacked it on the counter. "This is the updated enforcement protocol. All theft-related appeals require proof of vehicle ownership." I stared at her. That was not a thing 10 minutes ago. Joanne smiled, thin and cold. "The protocol updates in real time. If you cannot keep up, that is your problem." The receptionist looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "I will hold the packet and get clarification from the manager tomorrow." Joanne shook her head. "If you accept it, I will file a complaint against this office for procedural violations." The receptionist hesitated, then gently pushed my half-finished form back toward me. "I am sorry. I cannot process this until we get clarification." I picked up the form, feeling my face flush. Joanne had just moved the goalposts in real time and forced the staff to comply. I walked out, my hands shaking. By the time I got back to my car, there was a second orange tag on the windshield, this one listing a $75 parking violation for unauthorized overnight guest vehicle, even though my car was registered and parked in my assigned spot. I pulled both tags off, took photos, and got in my car. I needed help. I texted Chris. She just blocked my appeal at the office and hit me with a second fake violation. "Can you meet me?" He replied immediately. "Mailroom in 10. Bring everything." The mailroom was a narrow corridor with numbered boxes and a package shelf. When I arrived, Chris was already there, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He was a tall guy, early 30s, with a shaved head and a permanent look of being done with everyone's nonsense. He had been dealing with Joanne for 2 years and had files. "Show me what you have." I handed him my phone with the photos. He scrolled, shook his head, and pulled out his own phone. "Look at this." He showed me a screenshot of an email from 3 weeks ago. Joanne had sent a mass message to the community claiming someone was stealing petty cash from the clubhouse and that she was launching an investigation. The email had no details, no evidence, just a vague warning to stay vigilant. Chris swiped to the next screenshot. 2 days later, she sent another email accusing an unnamed resident of running an illegal side business and tying it to missing items. She never named anyone, but she started showing up at my place every morning right when I was leaving for work, asking questions about my schedule. I felt a chill. She is doing the same thing to me, showing up exactly when I am leaving. Chris nodded. She is building a pattern. She wants to make it look like she is investigating, but really she is just harassing people until someone cracks or pays her off. I need to prove the package is mine and that she is lying about the rule change. Chris thought for a second. "Do you have the delivery confirmation?" I pulled up my email. The package had been delivered 2 days ago, signed for by me at the post office. I showed him the timestamp. He grinned. "That is your proof. If the rule changed yesterday, how could she write you up for a package that was already in your possession before the rule existed?" I felt a tiny spark of hope. "But she will just move the goalposts again." Chris pulled a small notebook from his jacket. "Then we document every move. Every conversation, every email, every tag. We build a timeline she cannot wriggle out of." He flipped the notebook open. "I have been tracking her for 6 months. She has hit at least 8 people with fake violations, and every single one paid rather than fight. But 3 of them have doorbell cameras, and I have been collecting footage." He showed me a video on his phone. It was grainy, but clear enough. Joanne, wearing the same blue rain jacket, walking up to a neighbor's porch, looking around, then picking up a package and walking away with it under her arm. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. Chris swiped to another clip. Same scene. Different house, different day. Joanne taking a small box from a doorstep, glancing at the camera without realizing it was recording, and slipping the box into a canvas tote bag. I stared. She is stealing the packages herself. Chris nodded. And then she is accusing random people to cover it up. The missing petty cash, the clubhouse supplies, all of it. She has access to everything because of her committee role, and no one questions her. I looked at the clips again. This is enough to bury her. Why have you not taken this to management? Chris sighed. Because management is scared of her. She has been on the board for 4 years, and she has a reputation for filing complaints against staff who cross her. The last property manager quit because Joanne filed a discrimination claim when he tried to audit her expense reports. The current manager does not want the heat. I felt my anger sharpening into focus. Then we go around management. We take it to the HOA president or the county. Chris shook his head. The president is her friend. They have lunch every week. And the county does not care about HOA drama unless it is criminal. I thought about that. If we can prove she stole my package and framed me, that is theft and filing a false report. That is criminal. Chris smiled slowly. Now you're thinking. But we need more than doorbell clips. We need her on record lying about the rule change. And we need a witness who will back us up in public. I remembered the neighbor who had been on her porch that morning, watching the whole confrontation. Older woman, gray hair, always gardening. Her name was Linda, and she had been friendly to me in the past. I bet Linda saw the whole thing. Chris nodded. Linda hates Joanne. Joanne tried to fine her for planting the wrong color flowers last spring. If Linda will go on record, we have a third-party witness. I walked over to Linda's unit and knocked. She opened the door with pruning shears in hand, dirt on her knees. If you are here about the tulips, I already filed the variance request. I smiled. No, I am here about Joanne. Linda's expression shifted. Come in. She led me to her kitchen table and poured 2 glasses of iced tea without asking. Joanne has been a nightmare since day 1. What did she do now? I explained the package accusation, the fake rule change, the tow threat. Linda listened, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she set her glass down hard. She tried the exact same thing on my son last year, claimed he was storing prohibited items in his car, and threatened to have it towed unless he paid a fine. He paid because he did not want the hassle, but I saw her going through his car with a flashlight the night before. She was looking for something to pin on him. I pulled out my phone. I have footage of her stealing packages from other neighbors. If I can prove she stole mine and framed me, I can file a police report. Will you back me up as a witness? Linda did not hesitate. Absolutely. I saw the whole thing this morning. She accused you in your driveway, and you never raised your voice. She was the aggressor, and I will say that to anyone who asks. I thanked her and headed back to my unit. Chris texted me. Tow truck just pulled into the complex. I ran to my parking spot. A flatbed tow truck was idling near the entrance, and Joanne was standing next to the driver, pointing at my car. The driver, a heavy-set guy in a stained work shirt, was nodding slowly and pulling out his phone. I jogged over. Excuse me, what is going on? The driver looked at me, then at Joanne. She says this vehicle is unauthorized and needs to be removed. I pulled out my phone and showed him my registration and lease. This is my assigned spot, and my car is registered with the HOA. The driver frowned. Lady, you said this was an abandoned vehicle. Joanne stepped forward. He is under active investigation for theft. The vehicle is evidence, and I am authorized to impound it pending resolution. The driver looked uncomfortable. I need to see a police report or a court order before I tow anything that is not abandoned. Joanne's face went red. I am the architectural committee member for this association, and I am giving you a direct order. The driver shook his head. No order, no tow. I am not getting sued over HOA drama. He climbed back into his truck and drove off. Joanne turned to me, her eyes cold. You think you won? This is not over. She pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. 10 minutes later, I got an email from management. Your appeal has been denied due to incomplete documentation. You have 24 hours to remove the vehicle or face impound and a $500 fine. I forwarded the email to Chris. He called me immediately. She is escalating. We need to move fast. Meet me at the clubhouse in an hour. I have an idea. The clubhouse was a medium-sized building near the community pool, used for events and board meetings. When I arrived, Chris was waiting outside with a laptop bag. He led me around to the back entrance and pulled out a key. I borrowed this from the maintenance guy. We are going to check the access log. Inside, the clubhouse was dim and smelled like old carpet. Chris opened his laptop and plugged a USB cable into a small gray box mounted on the wall near the storage closet. This is the electronic lock system. Every time someone uses a key or a code, it logs the entry with a timestamp. If Joanne has been stealing clubhouse supplies like petty cash or equipment, her access pattern will show it. He pulled up a spreadsheet. The log showed dozens of entries, but 3 names appeared way more than others. Joanne Whitaker had swiped in 47 times in the last month, most of them late at night or early in the morning when no events were scheduled. Chris highlighted the timestamps. Look at this. She came in at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. There was no event, no meeting, nothing. What was she doing here? I looked at the storage closet. It was locked with a padlock. Chris pulled out a second key. Maintenance guy again. He unlocked it and pushed the door open. The closet was supposed to hold folding chairs, tables, and event supplies. Instead, it was half empty. A metal shelf that should have been stacked with paper goods and cleaning supplies had huge gaps. Chris pulled out his phone and took photos. This is where the missing stuff went. She has been taking it and either selling it or stashing it somewhere. I looked closer. There was a cardboard box on the bottom shelf, partially hidden behind a stack of chairs. I pulled it out. Inside were 3 sealed packages, each with a shipping label. None of the labels had my name, but I recognized one. It was addressed to a neighbor 2 units down from me. Chris took more photos. She is hoarding stolen packages. We need to take this to the police now. I nodded, but my phone buzzed. Another email from Joanne. Your vehicle has been flagged for immediate impound. A tow truck will arrive within the hour. Refusal to comply will result in trespassing charges. I ran back to my unit and moved my car to a guest spot outside the gate, hoping to buy time. When I returned, Linda was waiting on her porch. She waved me over. I just got off the phone with my neighbor Diane. She saw Joanne carrying your package 2 days ago. Diane has a Ring doorbell that faces the mailroom entrance, and she saved the clip. I felt my pulse spike. Can she send it to me? Linda nodded. She already did. Check your email. I pulled out my phone and opened the attachment. The video was short but clear. Joanne, in her blue rain jacket, walking out of the mailroom with a sealed brown package under her arm. The timestamp was from 2 days ago, the same day my package was delivered. The shipping label was not visible, but the size and shape matched exactly. I texted Chris. We have her on camera. Meet me at my place. He arrived 10 minutes later and I showed him the clip. He grinned. This is it. She stole your package, stashed it somewhere, and then accused you when you picked it up from the post office yourself. She probably thought you would not have proof of the delivery, and she could pin it on you as theft from her stash. Now what? I asked. Now we go to the police and file a report. Theft? Filing a false report? Abuse of authority. Let her try to wriggle out of that. We drove to the Columbus Police Department substation and asked to file a report. The officer at the desk was a young guy, looked maybe mid-20s, and he listened patiently while I explained the whole situation. When I showed him the doorbell footage and the access log, he nodded slowly. This is definitely something we can document, but HOA disputes are tricky. If she says she was moving the package for safekeeping or that it was mislabeled, it is hard to prove intent. What about the false report? I asked. She accused me of theft and threatened to call the police. That is filing a false report, right? The officer shrugged. Only if we can prove she knew it was false when she said it. If she genuinely believed you stole something, even if she was wrong, it is not criminal. It is just a mistake. Chris leaned forward. What about the clubhouse thefts? We have access logs showing she entered at weird times, and we have photos of missing inventory. The officer took notes. That is more solid. But we would need the HOA to file a formal complaint, and we would need an actual inventory audit to prove what is missing. Have you reported this to your property management? I explained that management was scared of Joanne and would not act. The officer sighed. Then you need to escalate it to the HOA board or the county. We can take the report, and I will give you an incident number, but unless she commits a clear crime in front of us or you get the HOA to cooperate, this is going to be a civil matter. I felt my frustration rising, but I kept my voice level. Can you at least document that I filed a report and that I have evidence she lied about the rule change? The officer nodded. I can do that. He typed for a few minutes, printed a sheet and handed it to me. Incident number is on the top. If she threatens you again, call us and reference this number. If she tries to tow your car without a valid violation, that could be theft of services or abuse of process, and we can step in. I thanked him and left with Chris. Outside, Chris shook his head. That was not as satisfying as I hoped. I know, but now we have a paper trail. If she keeps pushing, we have documentation. And we still have the access log and the doorbell footage. We can use that to pressure management or the board. Chris checked his phone. The clubhouse event starts in an hour. It is the monthly community social. Joanne always shows up to play hostess and schmooze the board president. If we confront her there with the evidence, in front of everyone, she will either fold or lose it publicly. Either way, we win. I thought about it. It was risky, but I was out of options. Let's do it. The clubhouse was already filling up when we arrived. Folding tables were set up with snacks and drinks, and a small crowd of neighbors mingled. Joanne was near the front, talking to a tall woman in a blazer who I recognized as the HOA president. Joanne saw me walk in, and her expression turned to ice. She said something to the president, and they both looked at me. I walked up calmly, Chris beside me. Joanne stepped forward, blocking my path. You are not welcome here. This is a members-only event and you are under investigation. I kept my voice steady. I am a resident, and this is a community event. I have every right to be here. The president looked uncomfortable. Joanne, maybe we should take this outside. Joanne ignored her. She turned to the small crowd that had started to gather. This man has been stealing packages and running a side hustle out of his unit in violation of community rules. I have documented multiple infractions, and I have witnesses. I felt the room go quiet. She was trying to shame me in public, using the crowd as leverage. I pulled out my phone. I have a doorbell camera clip of you carrying my package out of the mailroom 2 days ago. I also have access logs showing you entered the clubhouse storage closet 47 times last month. most of them late at night. And I have photos of the stolen packages you have been hoarding in that closet." The room went silent. Joanne's face turned bright red. "That is a lie. Those packages were mislabeled, and I was securing them until the rightful owners could be notified." I turned to the crowd. "If that is true, why did you accuse me of stealing and threaten to tow my car before I even knew the package existed?" Joanne stepped closer, her voice rising. "Because you missed the deadline for logging the package with the office, and that is a violation under the new protocol." I looked at the president. "Is there a new protocol requiring package logging?" The president hesitated. "Not that I am aware of." Joanne spun toward her. "I sent the update to the enforcement subcommittee last week." The president frowned. "I am on that subcommittee, and I did not receive any update." Joanne pulled out her clipboard and flipped through pages. "It is right here." She held up a sheet covered in dense text, but the plastic sleeve made it hard to read. I stepped closer. "Can I see that?" She jerked it back. "This is official documentation. You do not have clearance." Chris spoke up. "If it is official, it should be in the community portal. Let's check." He pulled out his phone and opened the HOA website. The most recent update was from 3 months ago, a reminder about pool hours. There was no mention of package logging. The president looked at Joanne. "Where is the documentation for this new rule?" Joanne's jaw tightened. "It was submitted through the proper channels. If the portal is not updated, that is an IT issue, not my problem." Linda stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. "I was on my porch when you accused him this morning. You said the rules changed yesterday, but now you are saying it was last week. Which is it?" Joanne glared at her. "The timeline is irrelevant. The rule exists, and he violated it." I pulled out the police incident report. "I filed a report this afternoon documenting your false accusations and the access log irregularities. The officer gave me an incident number. If you continue to harass me or threaten my property, I will pursue this as criminal filing of a false report and theft." The room went completely still. Joanne's face was red, her hands shaking. She turned to the president. "Are you going to let him threaten me in front of the community?" The president looked between us, clearly calculating. "I think we need to table this and review the documentation privately." "Joanne, can you send me the enforcement update you mentioned?" Joanne nodded stiffly, but I could see the cracks forming. She had just been challenged publicly, and she had no solid answer. The president addressed the crowd. "Let's continue the social. I will follow up with both parties tomorrow." The crowd slowly dispersed, but I could feel the shift. People were whispering, glancing at Joanne, pulling out their phones. Chris nudged me. "You just put her on blast in front of half the neighborhood. She is going to come at you hard now." "I know. But now everyone is watching. And she cannot move in the shadows anymore." We left the clubhouse and headed back to my unit. On the way, my phone buzzed. An email from Joanne. "Your appeal has been escalated to a formal hearing. You are required to appear before the Architectural Committee in 72 hours with all documentation. Failure to appear will result in automatic penalties, including fines, access suspension, and vehicle impound." I showed Chris. He whistled. She is doubling down. But that is good. A formal hearing means a record, and we can subpoena the access logs and force her to produce the enforcement update she claims exists. I am not a lawyer. How do I subpoena anything? Chris grinned. You do not. But I know a guy who does HOA law. He owes me a favor. Let me make a call. If you are enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild HOA revenge stories. Chris's lawyer friend was named Mark, And he did not owe Chris a favor so much as Chris had helped him move last year and Mark felt guilty about it. Mark agreed to review my case for free and give me advice. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. Mark was in his 40s, balding, with reading glasses on a chain and a tablet stuffed with case files. He listened while I walked him through the timeline, the accusations, the doorbell footage, the access logs, and the formal hearing notice. When I finished, he leaned back and sipped his coffee. Okay. First, the good news. She screwed up by threatening you in public and by moving the goalposts on the appeal process. That is selective enforcement, and it is a violation of her fiduciary duty as a board member. Second, the access logs are gold. If you can prove she was accessing the clubhouse outside of normal hours without a legitimate reason, that is misuse of authority. Third, the doorbell footage is circumstantial, but combined with the missing packages in the closet, it is enough to establish a pattern. Now the bad news. The formal hearing is a kangaroo court. She controls the committee, and she can rule however she wants. Your best bet is to use the hearing as a platform to go on record, document everything, and then take it to county mediation or small claims if she rules against you. I felt my stomach sink. So I am just going to lose the hearing no matter what? Mark shook his head. Not if you force her to contradict herself on the record. Ask specific questions about the rule change. Ask for the date, the approval process, the documentation. If she cannot produce it, her credibility tanks. Then introduce the access logs and the doorbell footage. Even if the committee rules in her favor, you will have a transcript showing she lied, and you can use that in mediation or court. What about the police report? Mark nodded. Mention it. It shows you acted in good faith and that you have third-party documentation. It also puts her on notice that this is not just an HOA spat. If she retaliates, it could escalate to criminal harassment or abuse of process. I thanked Mark and left with a plan. I spent the next 2 days gathering every piece of documentation I could find. I printed the access logs, the doorbell footage stills, the police incident report, the original appeal form, the email denials, and Linda's written witness statement. I put everything in a tabbed evidence binder, the kind with clear plastic sleeves and labeled sections. Chris helped me organize it. By the time the hearing arrived, I had a 3-inch thick binder that looked like a legal case file. The hearing was held in a small conference room at the clubhouse. Joanne sat at the head of the table with 2 other committee members, both older men I had seen around but never spoken to. The president was not there. Joanne had a rolling file cart next to her, the same one she had dragged around during our first confrontation. She opened the hearing by reading from a laminated sheet. This is a formal review of violations submitted against the resident of Unit 217. The violations include unauthorized package storage, failure to comply with updated enforcement protocols, and suspected theft from community property. The resident has requested an appeal. Proceed. I opened my binder and started with the basics. I presented the delivery receipt, the post office timestamp, and the sealed package photos. I explained that the package was mine, that I had legal proof of ownership, and that Joanne's accusation was false. Joanne cut me off. The issue is not ownership. The issue is compliance. You failed to log the package within the required 24-hour window. I looked at the committee members. Can you show me the rule requiring package logging? Joanne flipped through her clipboard and pulled out a sheet. She read aloud. All residents must notify the front office of deliveries exceeding $50 in declared value within 24 hours of receipt. Failure to comply will result in fines and potential access suspension. I leaned forward. When was that rule enacted? Joanne did not hesitate. Last month. Can you provide the approval date and the board vote? Joanne's eyes narrowed. That information is in the archives. I do not have it here. I pulled out a printout from the HOA portal. The most recent rule update on the portal is from 3 months ago, and it does not mention package logging. If the rule was enacted last month, why is it not on the portal? Joanne set her clipboard down hard. The portal is managed by a third-party vendor, and updates are delayed. That is not my responsibility. I turned to the other committee members. Have either of you seen documentation of this rule? They glanced at each other. One of them, a gray-haired man in a golf shirt, cleared his throat. I have not seen it, but Joanne handles most of the enforcement updates. If she says it exists, I trust her judgment. I felt my frustration rising, but I kept my voice calm. I have a witness who heard Joanne say the rule changed yesterday, not last month. I also have a recording of Joanne threatening to call the police and report me as a thief, even though I had proof of ownership. I played the audio clip on my phone. It was from my dashcam, which had been running during the first confrontation. Joanne's voice came through clearly. You stole from multiple vehicles in this community, and I have proof. That sealed package does not belong to you. Joanne's face went pale. That recording was taken without my consent. That is illegal. I shook my head. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I am a part of. The clip proves you accused me of theft before you even verified the facts. That is filing a false report, and I have a police incident number to back it up. I slid the incident report across the table. The committee members looked at it, then at Joanne. The gray-haired man frowned. Joanne, did you verify ownership before making the accusation? Joanne straightened. I had reasonable suspicion based on the pattern of thefts in the community. I was acting in good faith to protect residents. I pulled out the access log printout. Speaking of thefts, I have documentation showing you accessed the clubhouse storage closet 47 times last month, most of them outside of normal hours. I also have photos of stolen packages stored in that closet. I showed the photos on my phone, swiping through each one. The committee members leaned in, squinting. Joanne stood up. Those packages were mislabeled and held for safekeeping. I was following protocol. I looked at her. What protocol requires you to enter the clubhouse at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday? Joanne slammed her hand on the table. I do not answer to you. This hearing is about your violations, not mine. The gray-haired man held up a hand. Joanne, sit down. Let's keep this professional. Joanne sat, but her hands were shaking. I continued. I have a doorbell camera clip showing Joanne removing a package from the mailroom on the same day my package was delivered. The timestamp matches, and the package size matches. She took my package, and then she accused me of stealing it when I retrieved it from the post office myself. I played the doorbell clip. The room went silent. The second committee member, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, spoke up. Joanne, is that you in the video? Joanne's voice was tight. I was securing a mislabeled package. That is part of my duties. Then why did you accuse me of theft instead of just telling me you had secured it? I asked. Joanne did not answer. The gray-haired man looked at his notes. I think we need to adjourn this hearing and review the documentation more thoroughly. Joanne, I would like you to provide the full enforcement protocol update, including the approval date and the board vote, by end of business tomorrow. Joanne nodded stiffly. The hearing is adjourned. I gathered my binder and left, but I could feel the shift. The committee members were no longer blindly backing Joanne. She had been challenged, and she had no good answers. That night I got a text from Chris. Diane just sent me another doorbell clip. This one is from last week. Joanne was carrying the missing clubhouse petty cash box. I met Chris at his place and he showed me the video. It was short, just 10 seconds, but it was clear. Joanne, walking out of the clubhouse at 9 p.m. with a small metal lockbox under her arm. The box was the same one used for petty cash during events. Chris grinned. We have her. This is theft, on camera, with a timestamp. We take this to the police, and they have to act. I nodded, but my phone buzzed. Another email from Joanne. Your appeal has been denied. The committee has ruled that your violations stand. You have 24 hours to pay a $500 fine and submit to a vehicle inspection, or your access will be suspended and your vehicle will be impounded. I showed Chris. He whistled. She is trying to bury you before the evidence gets out. We need to move now. We drove back to the police substation and asked for the same officer. He was not on duty, but the desk sergeant listened to our update. When we showed him the new doorbell clip with the petty cash box, he nodded slowly. This is theft. If you can get the HOA to confirm the box is missing and file a formal complaint, we can open an investigation. I pulled out my phone and called the property manager. She answered on the third ring, sounding tired. This is about Joanne Whitaker. I have video evidence of her stealing the clubhouse petty cash box. I need you to file a formal complaint with the police so they can investigate. There was a long pause. I cannot do that without board approval. Then get board approval. She is stealing from the HOA and she is framing residents to cover it up. I have documentation, video evidence, and witness statements. If you do not act, I am going to the county and the local news. Another pause. Let me call the president. I will get back to you. She hung up. 20 minutes later, she called back. The president wants to meet tomorrow morning at the management office. Bring everything you have. I agreed and hung up. Chris clapped me on the back. You just forced their hand. If they ignore this now, they are complicit. The next morning, I arrived at the management office with my binder, my phone full of videos, and Chris as my backup. The president was already there, sitting at the receptionist's desk with a cup of coffee and a legal pad. She looked exhausted. Show me what you have. I walked her through everything. The access logs, the doorbell clips, the stolen packages in the closet, the petty cash box, the false accusations, the hearing transcript. She took notes, asked a few questions, and watched the videos twice. When I finished, she set down her pen. This is bad. If this gets out, the HOA could face lawsuits from every resident she has harassed, plus criminal charges. I need to bring this to the board tonight, but I want you to know that I believe you. Joanne has been a problem for a long time, but she is aggressive and litigious, and most people are too scared to challenge her. I appreciate that, but I need action. I need the fine reversed, the access suspension lifted, and Joanne removed from any enforcement role. The president nodded. I will push for that tonight. In the meantime, do not pay the fine, and do not let them tow your car. If they try, call the police and reference the incident number. I left the office feeling cautiously optimistic, but that night I got a text from Linda. Joanne just showed up at the grocery store parking lot and cornered me. She is losing it. I called Linda immediately. What happened? Linda sounded shaken. I was loading groceries, and she pulled up next to me and started yelling. She said I was conspiring with you to destroy her reputation and that she was going to sue me for defamation. I told her to leave me alone, and she started screaming that I was a liar and that she had witnesses who would contradict me. Then she tried to grab my phone out of my hand. A store employee had to step in and ask her to leave. I felt my blood boil. Did you call the police? Linda hesitated. No. I just wanted to get out of there. But I recorded part of it on my phone. Can you send me the video? She sent it a minute later. The clip was shaky, but the audio was clear. Joanne's voice shrill and furious. "You are lying, and I have witnesses who will say the exact opposite. You are working with him to frame me, and I will not let you get away with it." Then Linda's voice, calm but firm. "Joanne, leave me alone." Then a store employee's voice. "Ma'am, I need you to step back. This is private property." Joanne kept yelling. "I am a board member of the Desert Palms Community Association, and I have authority here." The employee responded, "You do not have authority in this parking lot. If you do not leave, I will call the police." The video cut off. I saved it and texted Chris. Joanne just harassed Linda in public and claimed she has witnesses. Linda recorded it. "This is escalating." Chris replied, "We need to end this now. Board meeting is tonight at 7. Let's go and force a vote." I showed up at the board meeting with Chris, Linda, and Mark the lawyer. The meeting was held in the clubhouse and about 20 residents were in attendance, way more than usual. Word had spread. Joanne was sitting at the front table with the president and the 2 committee members from the hearing. When she saw me walk in, her face went white. The president opened the meeting and immediately moved to executive session to discuss personnel matters. Joanne objected. "This is a public meeting, and all residents have the right to observe." The president looked at her coldly. "This is about allegations of misconduct against a board member. We are going into executive session, and you are recusing yourself." Joanne stood up. "I will not be silenced. I have done nothing wrong, and this is a witch hunt orchestrated by a resident who is under investigation for theft." The gray-haired committee member cut her off. "Joanne, sit down. We have reviewed the evidence, and it is serious. You need to recuse yourself now." Joanne looked around the room, her face red. She grabbed her clipboard and her rolling file cart and stormed out. The room was silent. The president addressed the crowd. "We are going into executive session for 30 minutes. Please wait here." They moved to a side room, and the crowd started buzzing. Linda leaned over to me. "She is done. I can feel it." 30 minutes later, the board returned. The president stood at the podium and read from a prepared statement. "After reviewing evidence presented by a resident, the board has determined that Joanne Whitaker engaged in conduct inconsistent with her duties as architectural committee member. Effective immediately, she is removed from the committee and from all enforcement responsibilities. Additionally, the board is directing management to conduct a full inventory audit of clubhouse property and to cooperate with any law enforcement investigation. All fines and penalties issued by Ms. Whitaker in the last 6 months are under review, and affected residents will be contacted individually." The room erupted in whispers. The president continued, "We apologize to any residents who were harmed by this situation, and we are implementing new oversight procedures to prevent future abuse. The meeting is adjourned." I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Chris grinned. "You did it. You buried her." The next day, I got a call from the property manager. The board voted to refund all fines issued by Joanne, including yours. You should see the credit on your account within 72 hours. Also, we found the missing petty cash box in Joanne's car during the inventory audit. She had been taking small amounts over several months. We filed a police report, and the detectives are handling it now. I thanked her and hung up. A few days later, I ran into Linda at the mailroom. She was grinning. "Did you hear? Joanne is also being removed from the neighborhood chat moderator role." Apparently, she was deleting posts that criticized her and banning people who asked questions. The president is taking over moderation, and they are reviewing all the old logs. I smiled. "Karma." Linda laughed. "Speaking of karma, you should have seen her face when the board president read the statement." She tried to interrupt, and the president told her to sit down or leave. Joanne tried to argue, and the president said if she did not stop, they would call security. Joanne left, and she has not been seen in the neighborhood since. I heard she is moving. I felt a grim satisfaction. Good. She burned every bridge she had. A week later, I got a certified letter from Joanne's attorney. It was a cease and desist, demanding I stop defaming her and threatening legal action. I forwarded it to Mark. He called me an hour later, laughing. This is the weakest cease and desist I have ever seen. She has no case. You told the truth. You have documentation. And she is the one under criminal investigation. Ignore it, and if she files anything, we will destroy her in court. I felt the last bit of tension leave my shoulders. It was over. Joanne had tried to frame me, bury me in fake violations, and destroy my reputation. But I had fought back with evidence, witnesses, and the truth. She lost everything: her committee role, her enforcement power, her reputation, and possibly her freedom if the criminal case went forward. Management took over enforcement decisions and removed her discretion entirely. She was removed from the neighborhood chat moderator role, publicly humiliated by a written vendor refusal that made her look incompetent and vindictive, and she had no one to blame but herself. The funny part? During the final board meeting, Joanne confidently read the wrong rule section out loud while trying to defend herself, quoting a pool hours policy instead of the enforcement protocol she claimed existed. The room went silent, and even her allies looked embarrassed. That moment, more than anything, showed everyone that she had been making it up the whole time. A few weeks later, I was loading groceries into my car when I saw Joanne across the parking lot. She saw me, froze, and then quickly got into her car and drove away. I did not say a word. I did not need to. She knew she lost, and I knew I won. And that was enough. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you being here.